And what was the transition point from I have this blog, now I want to package this into the form of a book? Like what was the purpose and kind of direction, or was it like an aha moment? Like how did it come up?
I had a few fellow bloggers who were, I almost consider them my mentor bloggers. They would kind of come on and encourage me and say, you really should think about putting this out there. You really should think about putting this into a book. This would be really great for people to read, especially if they're going through the same thing. Like if their parents have children with autism, they might be able to pick up that book and really feel some comfort. I even had some a doctor who kind of pulled me aside and said, I read your blog and I really enjoy it, and you should really think about putting this into a book because it's something that I could recommend to my patients that they read it, if they're going through some similar, experiences. So just hearing different people say that was enough encouragement for me to say, oh, maybe I could really do this. So that's when I started to put it together and try to put it into like a narrative form, because of course, all of these were individual blogs. And so it's not like a normal narrative story that goes from one point to the next to the next. It's kind of, theme based. Each chapter had its own theme, and I just put them in chronological order in a way that made sense. So, in a way, I kind of feel like that makes it more accessible, because you could probably pick it up and read at any point in the book and get what's going on. Even if you didn't read in the beginning, you still sort of get it. So, yeah, that was kind of where I went from the blogging nature to the actually writing a book and having it be more of a traditional book.
Yeah. And I will say that, and obviously I'm biased, but this was done right? Because a lot of times there'll be someone who has a blog and they have an established following and they package it together to create a book, but they literally just kind of like copy and paste a bunch of blog posts without any thought of creating the narrative. And so I would imagine that was probably what took the majority of your time. It was kind of like connecting those dots and bridging those things together,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I actually had to write a few extra chapters, which was weird because normally I would just write chapters as I was inspired. I would write the blog post as I was inspired. So this was a little different, where I'm like, this is a hole I need to fill in the narrative. So how am I going to write this chapter in an interesting way? And so that was actually kind of fun, to have to take a certain idea of this certain point in the story and make something of it. But it definitely was sometimes challenging. So
Can imagine. Okay, so you started the blog 8 years ago. How far in was it when you were blogging that you were having these conversations with kind of your mentor bloggers who were like, you should write a book? So I'm trying to get to the bottom of how long did it actually take you to write, like how long were you sitting on this idea versus when you started to actually put it together as a book?
I would say it was about 4 years in, but I was getting, all along I sort of had people saying, oh, you should think about doing this. But I didn't take it seriously until about 4 years in. And I, at that point, took everything and put it together, made a table of contents and thought about shopping it out. So that was about 4 years in, which is 4 years ago. So it did take a while to go from that point to where I am now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a short timeline. Like there's a lot of people who, I talk to people who've been sitting on their book idea for decades, like, so for you to have take 4 years to be like, okay, I'm finally going to listen to the advice and put this into a book, to actually being here talking on publication day. I feel like that's a pretty good timeline.
Yeah.
So I'm curious like what your first step in the process was when you were like, okay, I have this content, I'm reworking it. Now I need to figure out how I'm going to actually get this out there and work with somebody to help me publish the book. Like what did that look like? And I like asking this question because it's such a mysterious thing for so many people, because in so many ways you really have no idea where to start. So I'm curious, like, what was like the first conversation that maybe you had, or the first Google search that maybe you had?
Well, the first thing that I thought about was, if I'm going to really shop this around, I want it to be the best it can be. So I had actually a friend who was an editor, and she was very excited to take a look at it. And so she agreed to edit the book. And that was super helpful because just getting that first look, getting somebody to look at it, do the grammar, the punctuation, all of the stuff that's just the basics, to make it a little bit more presentable was great. So that was my first step. But then I was like, what do I do with this now that I have it? So I went online and tried to figure out what the process was. I bought a couple of books, and everything said, well, you got to get an agent. So then it's sort of learning how to navigate that system. And so I sent it out to a few agents, but I really felt like I didn't know what I was doing. It's really almost like a talent in itself to learn how to market yourself. Yeah. And I don't have any background in that. So, I tried that for a little while. I didn't get any responses. I tried going to independent publishers, and I thought that would be easier because you can skip the agent and you can go straight to them. And that was like a little bit more successful, where I could actually get a response from an email, which was nice. But I finally was like, this is so ridiculous that I'm spending all this time and energy trying to sell this book in this way. And then I just happened to, do a search, and I was really looking for just some way that I could publish my book that was kind of like an independent publisher, but I didn't really want to do like self-publishing because I felt like I didn't know enough to do self-publishing. So that was when I came across your website, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect because like you said in your website, that hybrid publishing is kind of like taking the best of both worlds, where you're taking the publishing world with all of the vendors and people that know what they're doing, and then taking the self-publishing. So I'm doing some of the work as an author, and then you, in the end, actually get a book that's really, really high quality, and you feel proud to put it out there. So, so that was really the process for me, going from the blogging to actually having a book. And I'm so glad that I found you guys, because you've made this process so much more pleasant and much easier.
I think that it has something to do with your personality too, where, I think that like when you come into the process and you're just, there's a sense of just gratitude for like the overwhelmingness or the complications of the process. It makes it just everybody's life a little bit easier, because it doesn't have to be hard. I tell people this all the time. It doesn't have to be hard, but unfortunately it can be, because it's just, you don't know where to get the information from. So yeah. I'm happy that we crossed paths. I was trying to think of it. I should have looked before we started going live on this, but when we first connected to like look at our timeline, because it did, like, you have really moved through this process quite quickly in the grand scheme of, authors.
Yeah, it was, I believe I reached out and we had our first conversation in August of last year. So that was August of 2021. And then I think we kind of got started sometime in September, where I actually was connecting with people. So yeah, it moved pretty quickly. I think part of it was having that first edit done by my friend really helped to kind of get me right off, on kind of like hitting the ground running, where I didn't have to go through that step. So I got to skip that original, like just getting the grammar and punctuation and all that stuff. And I could go right to the developmental editing and just kind of moving forward more quickly than maybe somebody else would. But but still I had some great people to work with. So they made the process very pleasant.
Thank you. That is honestly our top goal always, is to have just a good experience, because unfortunately a lot of people have very negative experiences in the publishing space, and I never want our name to be associated with that.
Yeah,